to go. Cool. Okay. Marvelous. Great. Well, it's great. It's great to have so many people on the call, and thanks for being here. I'm going to hit. I'll have hit record. Marvelous. Excellent. Cool. So first of all, the reason that I have put this together tonight is for a number of different reasons. And first, before we sort of get into the presentation and the sort of the conversation I hope we have, not just me lecturing, but a conversation about it. What I've noticed, particularly during the lockdown period, has been that I get the impression that for various different parts of the music industry, and it's not just the music industry, it's sort of online business in general, or business people, because people have kind of been almost forced online, there's a kind of catching up process, and they're trying to figure out like how this money making thing works, how online business really works. And for most of us, if we haven't had a kind of educational process, you know, around the nuts and bolts, then there's a degree of mystery about it. And so what I'm aiming to do in this particular call, or what I'm not going to be doing, is saying like, this is the step 1 that you need to follow, step 2 that you need to follow, step 3. There'll be a bit of that, and I'm sure when we ask questions we'll get into that. But what I'm aiming to provide here is a discussion about what's happening beneath the surface that's not necessarily that obvious to people. Because I at the moment I'm having quite a few conversations about that stuff, because people are saying, well, I'm confused because I've managed to get this really good gig, or this really good client, or this really good student, and that seemed to be so easy and effortless. It was like a dream student or dream client. But I don't know if I wanted to try and get twice as many, I wouldn't know how to go about doing it. And it seems like it's sort of hit and miss, and that there's a kind of random process there. And although it is kind of random, and there is a kind of randomness to it, from what I can tell at least, it's useful to understand some of the stuff that isn't random, and the stuff that is solid and is predictable, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, because I've got a few bits and pieces that are useful to share. I'm going to do that now. I have to find out if I can do that. How do we do that? Share that. Right. Okay, cool. So what I've got a few slides. I'm not going to make loads of use of the slides today, because it gets a little bit deaf by PowerPoint. But what I'd love to do with you is to sort of make this as interactive as possible. So the first thing, it can be useful if you've got a sort of pen and paper handy to be able to write down some ideas. And my intention is that this is useful here. So first of all, I know that I've talked in very broad terms. I know that some people here are teachers seeking students. I know that some people here are musicians wanting to make some income online. I know that there are people who don't fit into either of those categories. So what I would encourage you to do, you can either do it in the chat on the Zoom call, or you can do it just writing down. But what is it, you know, this is for you, you know, so you don't have to share it with me, but what brings you to this call? And it can be useful just to, you know, stop and think about that for a minute. So if we were in a one-to-one conversation, what brings you to this call? What is the thing that you are trying to create, or the thing that you are wanting to develop further, if you've already got a teaching practice, say, or a client base? So what is it you're trying to create or develop further? I'm going to have a look and see if there's any comments in. Oops. Chat. I can't see the chat and screen share at the same time. That's funny. Let's stop the screen share. So I'm not going to say names for the recording. So sell music related online video courses. We've got. I'm looking. Oops. I'm looking to increase the online audience for the band that I'm in. Keep these coming. If you want to share them in the chat, that's really useful to me, because then I'll do my best to sort of tailor it to you rather than me doing Nick on lecture mode. Someone else has said, for me, more people watching my videos, get subscriptions and possibly start earning some more money towards helping others and promoting what I do. I'm going to read these. Someone else has written, I want to launch my music aggregator, Spark Mesh, certainly an audience building challenge, hoping I get a few more good ideas from the call. Someone else has said, I want to assist a band with music online presence and music promo, cultivate more private pupils, how to promote myself, more flute students online worldwide, like it, donuts and coffee. I can't guarantee that you will create donuts and coffee as a result of this call, but I like the sentiment. I want to increase the breadth and variety of clients that I can offer my services to as a contractor, and more students online and in person. Okay, so I'm not going to read any more of those out. That's a good mix of people, and that's kind of representative, I guess, of the kinds of conversations I've been having about this stuff. So I will do the screen share again. This will be a bit better. Marvelous. Okay, so we've got an idea of sort of what we're listening out for. What I'd offer is a distinction that I often mention to clients or people when I'm doing a talk, and that distinction is the difference between listening on this call, I mean, for agreement, so listening to about whether do you agree with what Nick's saying or do I disagree with what Nick's saying, versus listening for insight, which to me is not listening with that frame of yes or no, but it's listening with nothing on your mind. It's listening with a kind of open mind, I guess. And the reason I make this distinction is because sometimes people go, oh, it can't be done that way, or that hasn't worked. Or they say, yes, I know this already. Absolutely. Yes, good. I've heard this before. This is similar to something else. And in that moment that we make that decision, that it's a yes or a no, we can sometimes block out a subtle distinction that might be present on this call, or a new thought that pops up, but we put something into a box or put it into a different box. So as much as we can, I'm encouraging, and myself as well, I'm aiming to sort of get myself into an insightful space where I'm kind of open to the comments and open to what the call requires rather than what I think I need to be doing. So first of all, I want to, you may have seen this, but I think it bamboozled me for quite a while. So this is a little Christmas joke, I guess. So I don't know if has anyone seen this before? Does anyone know the joke here? Unmute yourself if you know the joke here. Very annoying, I can't see the chat at the same time. I'm going to stop the screen share.
I just put it in the chat, but I believe it's got something to do with
down in history.
Down in history. Yeah.
Good. I'm not alone. Cool. Great. So I'm going to share it again so you can see. There we go. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So Rudolph goes down in history. So the reason I'm sharing that, apart from the fact that it's Christmas Eve, the reason I'm sharing that is because I realized this yesterday, actually, that when I was at school, and it's probably the same for you, when I was at school, I showed up at a lesson, or I went to a music class or ensemble, and after years of being a student and working with other students and working with teachers, the model that I'd been taught was that I did stuff, or I achieved things, and I got graded based on what I did. So like Rudolph with his history grade going down, he has presumably gone to a history lesson and written some kind of essay or done some kind of presentation that he got first a B+ for, and then later on in the second report he's got a D. He's gone down in his grade, and that grade can seem to be about what he personally is achieving. So it seems like that level of feedback that he's had has been completely about him, right? And of course there's presumably a teacher who has graded him, so there is a subtle relationship in the background, but to the student, the child, it can seem like, you know, it's about me. This is about me. It's about me doing my best and me getting rewarded for what I do. And that's cool, because we want students at school to feel like they're in control and have some kind of agency over what they're doing. But the challenge is that when that child, if they're not given much of a business education, or they're not given much by way of sort of business skills mentoring or development, then they get the idea that that's fundamentally how life works, that life is fundamentally about how well I do. So my achievement or my ability as a musician is fundamentally about me, and it's only to do with me, and there's not much to do with other people. And I have to tolerate other students or my teacher, but essentially it's a score. My life is a scorecard about me, right? That's a tricky one when it comes to business, and I'll explain why. Because what happens is that, you know, we want to pay our bills, we want to earn money, we want to you know, have our scorecard go up. We're working from that metaphor. We want to have more to show for all our learning and our effort and all our studying. So we want the grade to go up. So we want to get A's or A+, or the best possible, right? And it's the same with our bank balance. We want my bank balance scorecard, and we see it like a scorecard of our personal achievement. It's not quite. But we want our bank balance scorecard of our life to be an A+. And so what do? We want to, you know, if we've been working in employment, that money arrives and we don't really have much to do with it. If we're working for ourselves, or we're sort of freelance, or we're a business owner, then what we really want is we want to try and press this easy money button. We want to try and do things that instantly give us cash, or instantly give us the result that we're looking for. You know, when we're at school, we know pretty much what we have to do, if we're a relatively successful student, to be able to move the money needle. So what I see people doing, I'm talking specifically about music industry now, what I see people doing a lot of at the moment is they go, right, okay, I'm on Facebook, I've got a new EP, I want people to buy it, so I want people to know about it, so I'm going to share it. So I'm scared about sharing it, but I'm going to be brave. So I'm going to be brave and share it on my profile. I bravely share it on my profile. And then nothing really happens, or my friend likes it or something. So then they go, okay, right, I'm going to be brave. I've got to be more visible, or I've got to make more noise. So I'm going to go in a really big Facebook group and then press share, and then hopefully people are going to buy. And maybe they do, but because of the way that Facebook works, or because of you know, sort of other factors, they pretty much can often end up, sometimes it works, but pretty much they can end up with tumbleweed, you know, like nothing really happening, crickets, you know. And so what I'm finding right now, particularly when people are being forced to sort of run their businesses online, is that actually that whole model of me being a student, or me being an individual, and it being about me, that's part of the reason why they're not getting the results that they would like to be getting. So what I'm going to be looking at with you and sort of going through, and hopefully there will be a chance to to get into questions and answers and that sort of thing is not so much about the tactics of exactly what Rudolph should do in his history lesson, you know, like exactly which word he should use, but it's rather that actually the game you're playing might be a subtly different game to the game you thought you were playing. And for me, and again, this is, some of this stuff is really my personal experience, and other stuff seems to be like universal principles. And what I'm doing today is my best to present the universal part, because as far as I can tell, you know, everywhere I look in terms of different businesses, that these are kind of non-negotiables. And once you kind of get how the whole thing works, it all makes sense. So that's why I shared this metaphor. So it's a bit like a stack of dominoes that, you know, if you want to knock over that first domino that you see, then there needs to be a first domino, first of all, right? And then there needs to be a second domino quite next to it, quite close to it, close enough so that it touches, and then that the first domino knocks the second domino, right? So if you've only got 2 dominoes there, you're going to only have a little row of dominoes. But if you want to knock 1 domino over, and then 2 meters away, you want a domino to knock something else over, then you know, if this is obvious, you need to stack 2 meters worth of dominoes at the right spacing, and then you actually need to knock over the first one, and then the principle of gravity does the rest for you. You know, the system has been set up correctly. You've done what you needed to do to set the thing up, and you knock one end over, and then the last one finishes. And as far as I can tell, this is how the buying journey works for anything. So what we're talking about is the journey from someone not knowing about you at all, not trusting you, being cynical about the value that you can offer, not really understanding what distinguishes you from anybody else, going from that place of not knowing at all to having a relationship with you and knowing that this need that they have, which they're now aware of, you're the person to help them with. And it's, you know, it's fair to say that maybe not every single person on planet Earth is your client or your student or your customer, but there are loads of people who are potential customers of yours. And right now, given the way that the world is, they're doing things online somewhere. Right? So our job is not to get, it's not about making the best product or shouting into a vacuum. It's about playing the game of dominoes here. It's about stacking them up and knowing how many dominoes you need and stacking them in the right way so that the whole process, you know, works as well as it can do. Now, the key distinction, and I'm doing my best here to really point to the stuff that has made the biggest difference for me in terms of what you've come here for. You know, and the biggest difference that I have seen in business, or the kinds of conversations that I have, or the engagement in my Facebook community, or the kinds of comments that I got as I shaped the book, for example, the thing that moved the needle in getting people motivated from one end of the domino journey to the other was service. And I know that service is something that can sound a certain way to you. You may already have a certain set of ideas about what service means to you. I guess for the purposes of this call, I want to point to this as a main focus, and to explore for yourself what service means, what else it can mean as well. So what more service could mean. It doesn't necessarily mean you know, selling your soul to the devil, or sort of giving yourself away to people. That's not the kind of service I'm talking about. I'm talking about you know, really having an impact, really So let's say you're a teacher and someone's looking for a teacher online and they want to learn the flute. I play a bit of flute, very badly, but I play a bit of flute. If I was looking for a flute teacher, part of my process would be that I would probably do some kind of Google search, or probably do some kind of YouTube search, or probably do some kind of Facebook search, actually, to see if there are any groups, to get an idea for the kinds of words I should search for. Because I don't necessarily know, I mean, I do now, but when I first started, I wasn't quite sure about some of the names of some of the keys, or you know, like some of the books I needed. So I didn't really know what to Google for, right? So I went to places where I thought other flute experts would hang out, or people who are a little bit further along the journey than me hang out. And I was asking for advice so that I could figure out how to teach myself the flute, which is how I started playing flute. And there were people in there that answered questions, or there were posts that gave me what I was looking for, and then I was able to buy the books that I wanted to do, and then I was able to sort of research and buy the right flute that I wanted, and I was able then to have conversations with people and all that sort of thing. And that was an education process that I went through. You know, I knew I had a need, but what happened was that people impacted me, and they educated me, going from not really knowing enough about the instrument to knowing more. And because of that interaction from those people, I moved along the journey. Now, this is not the way that I ended up learning the flute, actually, but I'd started that process, right? So what I'm really interested in you seeing and sort of exploring fresh is this from the student's perspective. So rather than it being about Rudolph with his scorecard, and it being about how successful you are as a musician, or how successful you are as a business person, or you know, whether it's not even about like whether the market is ready to you know, buy or not. You know, there's a lot of people saying to me at the moment that people don't really want to spend money. In my experience, that hasn't been true. It's more about whether the development, whether the relationship is developing in the way that it needs to develop in order to convert to a paying client, to a paying student, to a paying customer, right? So and this is, I love this metaphor, actually. So that we say that money doesn't grow on trees, and I've shown this to people, I think, on previous occasions. So one or two of you may have seen this before, but if you think about it, you know, if you were a farmer and your job was to farm raspberries, then there's a predictable process. You know, there's a certain set of steps that the berries go through, or the bush, actually, the plant goes through, right? And you can't have berries and fruit for your fruit salad or whatever you're going to make without there being buds, and you can't have fruit without there being flowers that have ripened and that have been pollinated and then actually turn into small sort of green fruit, and then evolve and ripen into fully formed raspberries. Right now, the farmer, or the person whose plant it is, whatever, they don't make that plant ripen. They don't make each berry ripen. They don't you know, camp out under one side of the tree or one side of the bush and expect that one particular fruit is going to ripen. What they do is they water the whole plant. They nurture the whole plant. They love the whole plant. They provide a loving, nurturing environment for the fruit in general, right? And nature takes care of the ripening process. And then, as that plant matures, as the buds pop up, then there may be certain things that a farmer could do that could help the the buds to become flowers. It's helpful that the plant has enough sunlight, for example, and it's helpful that the insects are able to pollinate. So there are things that you can make it easier, and you can certainly stop that natural process from happening. But that nature needs to run its course, and what you'll notice is that if anyone's here has ever grown raspberries, then you notice that certain flowers turn into fruit and certain ones don't, right? Or certain green fruit turn into fully ripened fruit and others don't, right? And there are certain bits of the bush that just don't ripen at all and they never turn into flowers or fruit. There's bits where it's kind of a bit lanky and it doesn't really, maybe there's not enough sunlight there or something, but it doesn't really work so much. But because the whole plant has been watered, then it generates fruit generally, and then enough time, enough attention has been put into it, and there's a crop of fruit, and that's generally how it works. Now this to me is how I tend to think about the whole of my business now, rather than what I used to do of having a conversation. So someone, like, let's say for example you're a violin teacher and you really want a violin student, so you go to a Facebook group and you say to someone, someone says, I want to have a violin teacher, and they send a message like, I can help you. I'm the concert master of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. I charge £60 for a consultation lesson. You'd be really lucky to have me. And then someone says no, and you're trying to force one single student to kind of do business, and there's kind of a frustration there, potentially. And part of the reason that maybe someone doesn't say yes is because there isn't that support system of the whole business, a whole sort of business strategy. There isn't a chance for them to see, how you play, or how you teach. Are you any good as a teacher? They don't have enough of experience, so they say no, and then the teacher can end up feeling like, I'm not good at sales, and I'm not good at self-promotion, and students are ignorant and they don't want to know. And I've heard this kind of thing from people before, and it makes complete sense that if you've been trying to do it and it hasn't worked particularly well, it's frustrating and it's annoying, and that's really the reason why I'm having the call tonight. So first of all, before we go any further, what I'd love to do, I'm going to stop the screen share right now. What are you making of what I'm saying so far? Like, is there anything that's particularly standing out, or that you're noticing? Is anyone either like to put in the comments what they're noticing, or what they're recognizing in themselves in that kind of sales journey, or like what's springing to mind right now?
Would you mind me speaking up?
No, go for it, Eric.
Oh yeah, I love your analogy with the blackberry. We own a 75-acre tree farm, evergreen tree farm, and where we grow trees. And what's important about it, we don't chop them down or use them for lumber, and we get paid by the state of Idaho in order to grow trees for beautification purposes. But the whole point of it is that your analogy is more so about the power of collaboration, community and collaboration. When you mentioned that the pollination, that's an important thing, that you need bees in order without bees, or without even crane flies, they also pollinate, you can't get to the berry stage. You can't get there. And in the business for music, the business of music, the power of collaboration is basically the power of many outweighing the power of one is important, because as a business, you have a business, whether you're a performer or a teacher, and you're trying to do this yourself. You're trying to market yourself. You're trying to do all of these things that you've been basically outlining to us in the Facebook feeds about how you're trying to push. Instead of pushing yourself, find others that are very talented with marketing. Find others that are talented with doing other things, lawyers and different things, so that you can all work together in order to achieve something that is prosperous for all of you, as opposed to just you. And then you're the one who's planting the tree, or in the case of the blackberry, you're actually the one who's planting the blackberry bush, and then it grows. And then you all work together in order to get it. That's how I see what you're
Lovely. I love that. Thank you for that. I hadn't actually thought of it in terms of collaboration, and there is, because what I'm not trying to do here is to say there is one kind of magic pill in terms of the actions that you take, because I don't think that there is going to be. For some people, like building a team and kind of employing a social media expert, or having a PR firm, or having a business partner, like that kind of collaboration in terms of people that form your team, that could be absolutely the thing that you need to do in order to grow something that's really successful. Now, I also see people for whom, if they understood the ripening process and they understood the connection part, not necessarily having a person working as a teammate or kind of as an employee, or as a kind of person to outsource to, but if, like, for example, what I heard in what you said there was, if I'm trying to sell, let's say teaching, if I'm trying to sell effectively my teaching, and I think I know what that student wants, but I've never really checked, actually. I might have taught a lot of students, but I might never have actually asked why they want to learn and listened to the answer. Or I might never have listened to the answer and then asked them a deeper question that goes behind that. So they may have said to me, and I do this, this is part of how I onboard coaching clients, and how because it's a habit for me now. I talk to people about gigs, and I talk to people about anything that I'm interacting with someone about now. I want to know, like, what's their motivation behind it. So if someone wants to learn the violin, for example, they have an idea of what a violin teacher is, but I want to know, like, why is it that they want to learn the violin? What are they imagining? Like, are they wanting to sound like Stefan Grappelli, or are they wanting to sound like Jascha Heifetz, or are they wanting to become a professional musician like their dad, or are they wanting to relax after a long day at work as a lawyer? What is it specifically that brings them to the conversation? Because if they want it for relaxation, and I'm trying to treat them like a future conservatoire student, that's going to be pressure that they haven't signed up for. They're going to go, or they're going to pick up the vibe from me that I'm not what they want, right? But if I've listened to them, and it's always innocent, we always listen as much as we can, but if I know that, like what I heard in what you said there is the connection piece. It's like, if I do my best to get on the same page as them, and to really know them and kind of love them, I guess, and give them what they really want, more than what I think they need, or more than well, sometimes it is what I think they need, but it's not essentially about me fundamentally. It's about the energy that they're bringing, sort of reaching fruition. And once I realized that my job is to help the fruition rather than claim ownership of it as a student or as a sale, it kind of loosens. My experience has been I've loosened up a lot more, and I can also be a lot stronger in the sales interaction because of that. It's similar to what you're saying, but I think there's some distinctions there as well. But I loved what you said about the collaboration piece, because I hadn't thought about it there. I would love to hear if there's anybody would like to share sort of maybe one or two more insights or things that have popped up. What have you noticing? What are you noticing that's different, or another way of seeing things potentially?
I actually have a question.
Sure.
Okay. You said something about showing how you teach and how you play. Do you think that as we musicians, we how we sorry, it's the thing that should we maybe make like YouTube videos, for example, on how we teach or how we play, and show that in that way to the students that are interested in something that we do?
I would say yes and no, and I know that's not very helpful, so I'll explain what I mean. Speaking from personal experience, it's a great question. It's a really great question. Speaking from personal experience, when I was starting to do the kind of content marketing thing, where you try, you see everybody else making slick videos, and they've got really nice production, and they've got killer copy written, so that they, all the algorithm tricks that you can play. There's all that kind of stuff. But the thing that I didn't get from that process, and I see people sort of falling into the trap of, it can be easy to like make content because you think you have to, and I need to have 100 videos on my Instagram wall, or I need to have 100,000 subscribers for it to really count. And what I'm talking about in terms of like getting the dominoes sort of all lined up, is the content has to be targeted and focused in a very specific direction for it to be the most valuable kind of content to your business. Because, and I was having this conversation with someone earlier on the call, I won't say who it was, but someone said to me that they felt like they were fishing for students. And what I said to them, because it made complete sense, like they felt they were fishing for students, and that if someone posted in a Facebook group that it's like someone throwing a piece of bread into a pond, and all the fish, all the teachers go in for the kill, and everyone's going, I can do it for cheaper, I'm better than you, and everyone's competing, and that's because that kind of fishing analogy kind of says that there's these fully formed students out there, and that you need to catch one of them. And instead of that, the people that you've asked about, the YouTube videos or the content, you want people who are watching your content who are not fully formed, fully ripe berries to be helped with the ripening process. And that ripening process isn't learning the instrument, it's being informed enough to make a buying decision, and make a good quality buying decision for them. You're not trying to produce content that convinces them or persuades them or manipulates them. You don't want them to be doing anything they don't want to do. You want them to be making a good quality decision. And the way they do make a good quality decision is when they have the information that they need. So one thing that I do, for example, in my Facebook group, is that I produce content, written content, but the content is not just random insights that I've had with coaching clients. It's when I've had a sales conversation or when I've had a coaching conversation, I listen to their way of thinking. And I've done it on this call today. Someone has said about one particular metaphor, that how they see it. And I go, actually, there's a distinction there, that that old way of thinking wasn't that helpful to that person, and I offered a different way of thinking, and it proved to be quite helpful. So what I do in the content that I create is that I try to speak to common misunderstandings or common kind of buying objections. So for example, for teachers, I'm talking a lot about teachers because I spoke about this on the post for this call, but some people who are particularly beginners, they think that they can teach themselves everything. They've got quite a good opinion of their ability to learn an instrument. Now, as a violinist, I know that trying to learn a violin from a book, or even trying to learn a violin from a video, it's not the same as when the violin teacher's got your hand and saying, this is what vibrato feels like, you know, or when they're saying, no, curl the finger, you know, if they're saying something, you know, I read in books telling me about how bowing should work, but when a teacher who had really mastered the art of making a really beautiful tone was in a lesson and was kind of shaping and sculpting my bowing hand, that wasn't the same as a YouTube video. It was a different experience, right? Now, to the Nick that hadn't had that experience, I was guessing and I was projecting what I thought a learning experience with an expert teacher would be like, but I didn't have enough information to make an informed buying decision as a student. So you know, you can either, you've got a choice. You can either wait for ripe berries on the tree to just fall off by themselves, or you can act like a responsible leader as a farmer and do what's necessary to ripen the berries, which means that you need to show them through your content, not necessarily directly, but by implication, because you don't want to be coming across as necessarily too needy and too pushy, but by showing them in your videos that, you know, you've maybe had a violin lesson and this is the thing that you learned, and, you know, that lesson was so much more valuable. I was really struggling when I was reading a book, but when I had the lesson, that really made a difference. And then you ask them a question like, is there anything that you're struggling with without a teacher, you know, or is there, you know, and then you're inviting a conversation about the very thing that only you can help with. And that's it. You're kind of changing a belief. That's what you're trying to do with that content. So does that answer your question?
I'm still not really sure. Like, I'm a flute teacher, and I'd love to have some people online, but I just don't know how to reach them. So you say that maybe a YouTube video with some kind of getting into a conversation. That I'm not sure if I really understand what you mean with that in case of promoting yourself, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so what I'll do is there's a framework. So when I was talking about dominoes before, there's a framework that I'd like to speak through first, and I think it will probably make more sense after I've done that. So that's what I was planning to share next. So can you help me understand exactly what it is that the thing that you'd like to know there? Help me understand a little better, because I don't think I've understood fully.
The thing is that at this moment I only have 3 students at a music school, and because of this corona thing going on, it's that there are so many people in the world that you could reach through Skype or Zoom to have actually lessons online. I'd love to reach out to more people. I just don't have the tools or know the idea how to do that.
Okay, so that's a brilliant question. So is it okay if I use that as an example? Are you able to sort of chip in as I talk through this, because it might be a nice example for people? So I'm going to share screen again. There we go. So this is the framework. You might want to maybe take a picture of this. I'm going to talk through these sort of 6. Can you see that? Okay, the sort of 6 different stages of the ripening process, as it were. And so this is not going to tell you like exactly you know, where to go to share stuff, but we can talk through your example, Alina, and we can it can make it make sense. So at the moment, if we look at stage number 1, which is awareness, and that's really when you get their attention, and they suddenly know who you are. At the moment, where could somebody go to get an awareness of who you are and what you do? So like literally, Alina, where could someone go to, what would be your answer to that question if someone wanted to learn the flute and they wanted flute lessons potentially with you, how would they find you at the moment?
I think either through Google, maybe a website that you post on Facebook. I don't know.
Okay, so at the moment, if they went, so for example, people looking for flute lessons might congregate in certain places. They do congregate in certain places. They congregate in flute playing Facebook groups, for example. If they were congregating in a flute playing Facebook group, would they see you? Would they know that you were an option?
As I'm a member of a music school, they could Google the music school, but to go towards me, like directly, maybe my YouTube channel, that they could come across my YouTube channel. Marvelous.
Okay, cool. So there is at the moment, and this will be the case. I'm sorry to kind of I don't want you to feel picked on particularly, but this is a great example of how many people I think probably will be to a greater or lesser extent on this call, that there's already bits of your business system, your sales system that are working, and it's a case of sort of shining some light on where we could sort of do better. So there's a way for them to go from being unaware to aware, and they find out who you are. Then the second stage is they need some kind of mechanism to be able to say, I'll give it a go. I'll join an email list. I'll join your Facebook group. I'll join a Facebook group. You know, they might have joined a flute playing Facebook group, and so they've basically put their hand up and they are visible. So if you're in a Facebook group, you know that everybody who's in that might be 10,000 people in some of the big flute groups, potentially, then or more. Then they have identified themselves as in your category in some way. That doesn't mean they want to buy from you, but your chances of finding a potential flute student in that group probably is going to be better than you know, a pickup truck group or something, or like a group about you know, car engine parts or something, you know. So they've volunteered in some way. So there's been a lead generation stage, whether it's to you or like an email list or a Facebook group of yours, or just generically, they've volunteered. And then the next stage, the third stage, is prospect development. So in other words, once they've volunteered in some way, there's then that education process. So like that's what we were talking about with the YouTube videos, probably. So once they have found you, and once they know that you are the right kind of person, roughly, to help them, then they give you their faith by clicking on your video, and then it's about what's in the video, where they go, oh, I get a feel for what you do, or I get a feel for how you talk, or how you teach, and also what kind of impact you have with people. So they're now kind of testing out the product. They're testing, and this is something that happens a lot more online these days than it used to previously. So the online people are much more discerning these days about, you know, they feel like they've got much more options, and there's sort of international teaching options. So in some ways it's harder. In other ways, if you get this stuff right, it's easier, because most people are not very good at this stuff at all. Like I would say like 95% of all the people that are in business. It's particularly in the music industry, because they see themselves as artists, not business people, right? So if you can really get clear on this stuff and really get good with it, you've got a massive advantage, particularly at the moment. It might not always be this way, but right now you have a massive advantage if you can get good with this stuff. And then once they've gone through that prospect development stage, they're starting to see the value of actually having lessons with you, and they trust you to a degree. They feel comfortable. They know that you are a credible option, and they understand maybe the nature of their own problem better than they did because of you. You've shed light on the decision-making process. Then when you say to them, you know, would you like to come on my, I don't know, flute concerto masterclass that I'm running for free? Or would you like to join my summer school? Or would you like to have a one-to-one lesson with me? Or would you like to join my 5-day challenge, whatever? They volunteer, and they don't feel like they're being sold to, because they trust you. And they don't feel like they're being manipulated, because you aren't manipulating them. Because all you're trying to do is, like, you know, offering them another chance to get better as a flute player. And then if they are still in the conversation, it's like, yeah, this is, you know, you're making a real impact in my life. You're changing how I play the flute already. I've tried that exercise, or I did that. I read your PDF. That's really made a difference to my practice. I'm seeing myself differently now. When you say to them, would you like one-to-one lessons then? Or would you like to join my subscription service or my group program? They go, maybe actually, yeah, what does it involve? And then the energy is coming to you. They're coming to you for sort of guidance at that point. And that's the point, stage 5, when you're, stage 4, when you're in a sales and enrollment conversation, where you're basically creating an agreement with them. You're checking what exactly they want, listening deeply, and you are leading them through a decision-making process. You're not leading them through buying with you. You are leading them through a good quality decision-making process. And if you're doing that from a place of service, and it's about their development and them getting the most as a student, if you have genuinely created a good quality teaching service, you've got experience and you are credible as a teacher and you know that value, or you've created a credible resource or whatever else you're selling, a program or what have you, if you know it's got value, and you know from your questions, from actually asking, that they would benefit from it, then if they say, oh, I can't afford it, or oh, I think I'll just watch YouTube, then the natural leader that comes out is like, actually, do you realize that learning from a YouTube video is not going to be like this, actually? And I made a video about that. Do you remember? And they go, oh, really? And then you continue the last bits of the prospect development process quite firmly if you need to, because they might have insecurities about, you know, spending money with you, or they might have fears about, like, well, what actually, if I want to become, you know, if I want to get into a conservatoire and be one of the best flute players in the world, or play in an orchestra, like, what if I actually got what I wanted? I'd be scared, because I don't see myself as a very good flute player. So at that point, they might actually be scared from the very thing that they want, or they might be holding back in some way. So the sales part of the process there is about leadership. It's about you being able to step into the value of what you're offering, and being able to be assertive enough and honest and direct enough so that they make a good quality decision for them. And sometimes the decision is a no, and that's the best decision for them. And sometimes the decision is a no, and they've made a bad decision, but you did everything that you could, and you were you led them well, and they just didn't make a good decision, and that's cool. You know, that's just a berry that didn't ripen. It just didn't happen that way. So you go on to somebody else, right? But it's not, there's no mystery about it at that point. You know that you've followed through the process. And then the last 2 stages on this, you know, these dominoes, the number 5 is the point at which you actually do what you actually said you'd do, and you teach them, and you deliver the service, and you do it again with service in mind. It's not, you don't fall into that trap, and this is another thing that people fall into, of making all the effort and the content and the quality to get them to the point of buying, and then they kind of go off your radar, and you don't really see the job through. You don't kind of give the same care and attention to them once they have paid you. Right, so that service and fulfillment part is very, very important, because if someone comes to you for flute lessons on day 1, and after 3 weeks they are sounding like a different player, their mum or dad is going to go, wow, who is that teacher? That was more astounding progress than I'd ever imagined. My friend wants lessons, and if you do that, I'm going to connect you. So they then, if the quality of your service, the depth of your service is astounding, is astonishing to them, and if that's something you work on and you sort of refine over time, but if it astonishes people, it surprises them enough to then refer. And then when they refer, you don't have to do, the more referrals that you get, the less work you have to do at the beginning of the stage, because you've then got several fruit trees, and it starts to then grow and grow and grow. So the quality of your work, that's the point at which the quality of your work speaks for itself. And that's the bit that people see happening, and it looks like magic. They say, oh, well, he gets every gig, or every student goes to her. And there's all this stuff behind the scenes. And this is what, as far as I can tell, this is the stuff that moves the needle. How does that sound after I've sort of gone through the whole process? I see you smiling.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
What's looking different, or like what are you noticing from all of that?
Well, there are so many thoughts, but it's basically at the beginning of how to reach the persons in the first place. I'm thinking of maybe doing some kind of Facebook page where I could share some tips and tricks about playing, and then try to maybe also on YouTube I have some videos where I play. Maybe in the description I could maybe say, like, if you are interested in lessons, then maybe hit me up in this kind of way. I'm thinking in that kind of way. Nice.
So, and this is to everybody now. So what I'm hoping, thank you for that feedback. It's really useful. What I'm hoping that you see through these 6 steps is that if someone's saying that they feel pushy, or they feel like they're sort of selling their soul, or they feel like there's just no interest out there, then those are symptoms. I mean, in rare cases those are true, but if you've fundamentally got a service that people want, like instrumental lessons, and you are sufficiently skilled to be able to teach over an internet connection at the moment, then there's no shortage of people who want that on planet Earth. There's just no shortage of those people. And there's no shortage among those people. There are plenty of people who could pay you. There are loads of people out there who just don't have, they haven't got the information to make a good buying decision yet. So that you're not fishing for fish. You are trying to ripen berries. So there's a great big tree here, and you're in the business of ripening them, right? So what I'd love for people to see is that that this is not about you getting clients. This is about you tuning in and sort of noticing where the audience is already. It's about them. It's really about them. And then when you think you've listened to them and you know them, then you listen to them some more. Then you ask them some more questions. Then you find out what they want a few times more. And then the information that comes out of those much deeper questions, or those deeper, and this is why I ask so many questions in my Facebook group, not for engagement, it's because I want to know how my audience thinks. I want to know what would make their experience with me amazing, better than I'm doing at the moment. What would help them? What do they really want? What's the stuff they're too ashamed to say they want? What are they too proud to tell me that they want? And it's not just coaching. I know coaching relationships are deep relationships, maybe deeper than some teaching relationships or professional, music relationships. But if you're one of the people that's prepared to play a deep game, a relationship game, then they will come to you, because you will change their life through your teaching. And some teachers do that. And if you can combine that deep teaching with a deep kind of loving sales process, call it sales, but it's really just service. It's not really about manipulating people to do things, and it's not about you having a scorecard that proves something about you. It's about how much of an impact you are making to the people you want to work with already. That's been my, I'm trying to give you like the very heart of the thing that's moved the needle for me the most in business. And as far as, this is my best attempt tonight to explain that. So what I'd love to do right now, we've got about 25 minutes until sort of the official end of the call. And I'm always, you know, beyond this, and if you're listening to the recording, whatever, you're always welcome to sort of reach out to me and ask me questions and what have you. But what I'd love to do for the remaining part of the session is to just answer questions. So if you've got a question that you would love to ask me in a, you know, like a one-to-one coaching session, or you'd love to ask me in the Facebook group, or you'd love to ask me elsewhere, you've got me for half an hour right now. So Lisa says she has to run. It's great to see you, Lisa. See you soon.
Nick, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Quickly, it's in regards to the number one, the awareness, out of your six your points. You know, I find that in the past, when I've mentored artists and or musicians, the first question that I ask is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Even before getting to the awareness part, are you able to look out? Because with Eileen, when she said, you know, in the beginning, when there's a story here, what I was looking at is that she was very nervous about, you know, what do I do and how do I do it? And I wasn't even sure if she was capable of even getting to the awareness part of having YouTube video and, or, I mean, YouTube videos and things like that. And I at the end, there was this glimmering piece of hope there where she said, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this, which for me said, wow, she just kind of, she has that strength and there's this passion with, you know, playing the flute and wanting to teach, and she's willing to take that step, where there are so many artists and so many teachers out there who aren't even at that point, where they're like scared and they're not able to, they don't have the strength of presenting themselves.
It's a fantastically astute observation, and the way, I mean, the way that I talk about that piece is, I sometimes refer to it as the difference between the inner game and the outer game, or like the inner play and the outer play. So essentially what we've been doing tonight on this call is looking at the outer game. It's like, you know, people come wanting tactics or strategies or bits of the business puzzle, and you know, I've literally shown you the dominoes. This is how the thing works, and as far as I can tell, that's my best shot at giving you the education piece. And exactly like you said, I've given those pieces to people before, clients, and I've pointed to bits of them in a Facebook group. And it's the difference between information and transformation. You know, someone who knows what they should be doing, but for some reason, and it's not obvious, this is another kind of blind spot to people, it's a fundamental, often people are held back by what they think is possible for them, or how they think the world works, or how they think the music industry works, or what they think COVID is doing to the world. So they're held back by a belief about what they think is going on. And it's not just about having enough information. If they're seeing the world through a belief that says, I don't really value my teaching anyway. I mean, of course, I'm a fourth year conservatoire student, but I'm just not very useful as a teacher. If they don't at a fundamental level, like, understand their own value, and the sale hasn't been to themselves, then that's the conversation that's going to do the most for that person. So that's why I have two kinds of conversations, and that's why I'm recording this, because my preference is for the deeper conversation, is for the coaching conversation, because what I found is that when I've had deeper conversations about the beliefs and those change, then people figure this stuff out by themselves. So but this is not a coaching demo today. This is a this is a kind of education piece, so that I can make a recording and I don't have to say it in every single, I can hand someone the recording. But I loved what you said there, because absolutely, you know, if you if you know that structure and there's some reason why you don't believe in yourself, or you don't believe that you're capable of doing it, then it'll feel really uncomfortable to have a strong sales conversation. You know, if I'm in a sales conversation with, I mean, I've done this, you know, if I'm having a sales conversation with a respected musician who's in the public eye, and I'm talking about them spending thousands of pounds with me, and they're telling me that, you know, quite firmly that they don't think they should, but we've had a genuinely connected conversation until that point, and it looks as clear as day to me that this is the thing that they really do need. Not me trying to manipulate anybody, but this is what, as a professional diagnosing, that's what I think. Then I will have a strong conversation with them, and sometimes they say yes and sometimes they don't say yes, but that's a coaching, you know, that leadership part, particularly if you're trying to sell you know, higher ticket products, more than just a sort of hourly rate, but a package of lessons, or you're selling the value of your subscription service. If you're trying to build something maybe a little on a larger scale, then that's when that ability to kind of step into your power really fully as a salesperson and as a leader, and a trusted advisor to these people and a visionary, I guess, that's when that becomes absolutely essential. So if I, you know, when I hadn't really had the kind of deep coaching and deep sort of business mentoring about those conversations, when someone said, "Oh, I could just do it better on YouTube," or I could just go to my teacher, or I'll figure it out by myself, then what I tended to do was kind of just shy away from having the conversation. But I found ways to kind of, in myself, to kind of stick with it, because I know that they actually need me to, as their teacher, as their coach. They need my strength there, not me to kind of do the same thing that they're doing, which is to be scared by change. So very, very astute observation, and an important distinction. So the difference between education and coaching there, I think, or sales, the real sales process. Thank you for that. Other questions, observations, anything I can help with on what we've said so far today?
I add something quick. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Nick, for all the insight. It's been really, really helpful. But I'm not really a teacher, but I am, you know, I'm looking to get more clients that I can offer services to, so I can interpret a lot of what you said in my own special way. One of the things that I've trying to latch onto, but also trying to, when other people ask me for advice, because I spoke to some people a while back in London about if they were looking to get their first client, because I've had 4 or 5 now since I've been working in the games industry, and they're still looking to get on that first rung on the ladder. So I give them more quantitative advice as opposed to qualitative. I say that they need to look at all the different possible avenues of promotion and making themselves known. And one of the things that bugs me about when I'm trying to look for that same advice is someone will say to me, "Oh, I used this particular platform, or I did a certain thing this way. This is that one thing that they can say landed them that client." But then I'll go to try that myself, and it hasn't worked the same way. And I sit there going, "Well, I kind of misinterpret it as something that I've done wrong." That can sort of psychologically set me back. So I don't know what your thoughts on that might be. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced.
I wrote about that in the book. I wrote about that exact thing in the book. Not with sales, but with learning how to master an instrument. Because it's the same thing, that we see someone who achieves something amazing. We look at their tactics, and we look at their habits, or we look at their behaviors, and then we try and reverse engineer things. And the reason why, it's not like that's irrelevant, because if you don't know you know, about a particular platform at all, or you don't know about a particular like MailChimp or something, or like web design platform or something, then it's useful to kind of have that information. But we can get lost in all that copying and sort of modeling of other people. And what it does, or what it can do, is it takes insight out of the equation, or it can kind of veil the fact that we have this connection to our own source of insight for ourselves. So what you said about sort of being, I can't remember your exact words, but sort of being disheartened by trying to do that, and not managing it, through the coaching process, or sort of through understanding how you work psychologically, then what normally happens with people is that when they feel disheartened, they don't take that feeling personally. So it's like, you know, like I'm doing at the moment. I'm having some conversations about something that I'm launching in January, and some people are not seeing what might be useful to them in that, and that's okay. And sometimes those conversations stop dead there, and sometimes they take a little longer, and both of those are okay. But I guess as a salesperson, or as a marketer, if you want to use those words, then it's a bit like with the, you know, watering the tree analogy. You don't want to take the individual sale personally. You don't, you know, not every bit of feedback, not every yes or no is a feedback about whether you're doing it right or not. It's a feedback on how ripe that berry is at the moment. And it's easy to make it about you in the no. You know, we as musicians, again, you know, we tend to really strongly identify with our craft. You know, I am a musician. I am a professional. You know, there's all these I ams that go with it that we turn into an identity. They're not really an identity. They're an activity that you do. But we in language we talk about them as if, you know, there's a badge of honor that says I am a professional, or I am someone who can only earn 10 grand or 20 grand or whatever, and we make that financial figure into an identity. So the more that the more you sort of start to see the way that the mind creates that attitude, the freer you are in those conversations to not take it personally and take the no if no is what happens, or you take a setback and you sort of recalibrate. So that's it really boils down to knowing that you have an innate capacity for insight and realization. In other words, just because somebody else has done something as a marketing tactic, or it doesn't mean, you know, just because Nick has done something in his Facebook group doesn't mean it's best practice necessarily. A few of those things I've never seen people do, but it just seemed like a logical, you know, like for example, I invite people to join for networking calls. I just fancied having a chat with people. It's nothing to do with sales. I just fancied having a chat with people. And I've noticed by accident, because I was thinking what would serve my audience, like everyone's looking to connect with other musicians, let's have a call. And some of those people are coming to me for business, and I hadn't even thought about that, but it was just an insight that I had. It was just, you know, what could I do to serve people? What could I do to water the tree? And it's like, well, I'll have a networking call, or I'll invite my friends to have a masterclass. We'll have a chat. And then out of that, some people come into the sales conversation. But that was an insight. No one told me to do it. I could, if I went looking for how to be me, but there's no one else doing it. So I can't reverse engineer that bit. So yeah, insight and not taking it too personally.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Got about another 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Questions? Any more questions? Something I haven't explained, something you'd like to know? Go for it.
You know, Nick, I just like, oh, I'm sorry. Did somebody else?
I haven't seen anybody. No, I haven't, not yet. If you are,
I'm sorry to take the mic here all the time.
No, go for it. Get your values worth.
What I enjoy about your teachings in Just Play is what I regard as passive marketing. Passive marketing being more as opposed to aggressive marketing, you know, like this is me on Facebook and you have to listen to me and here is what I do, or here is what, you know, versus, hey, this is me, come learn about me. You have the option of doing it or not, you know, if you want to, and you may come around and you may find me again. And then I like the idea of marketing through projects as opposed to persona, putting yourself forth and saying, hey, I'm the star, versus just doing projects and putting projects out there. And then people are curious about the creators of these projects. Yep. You know, who is it that created them? And then
Mhm.
we'll learn more about you through your project, as opposed to learning about your projects. This is kind of the traditional way of learning about your music and or what you do through your persona first. I mean, you know, I am more interested in not Nick Bottini. I'm interested in, you know, your playing, your what you've created, how
Mm.
you help people, your
Mm.
projects.
Mm. Are you asking me about that now, or is it sort of an observation?
Well, yeah, this is an observation, but I'm asking
Mhm.
you: is this your the passive marketing is this your more along the lines of how you're teaching versus the aggressive marketing?
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'd never thought about it in those terms before, but I'm sure everybody I mean, some people buy into the really aggressive marketing push, but I don't. I've noticed there are a lot of cynical people in the music industry, particularly, and in, you know, maybe in the world right now, actually. And I've found that I don't respond well to being pushed. You know, I see myself as a creative person, and part of being a creative person is being able to think for myself and being quite stubborn at times, right? And so if I don't want to do something, there's no whistles and bells that are going to make me want to do it. It's not about how well the video is produced. It's about ultimately, and this is a really useful distinction that a coach said to me. It's like, you know, you don't want to be thinking about like whether you're worthy to help somebody. You want to be thinking about whether you're being useful to them. And that's a question I often ask, is like, is this useful? Because if I'm not the best coach in the world, or I'm not the best musician, or I'm not the best marketer in the world, it doesn't actually matter if the person that I'm helping has been helped. If they've found it useful, I've done a good enough job. They've got value from me. So and they feel good about paying me. And I might think, oh, I could be a better player, or I could be a better marketer, or I could write better copy, or I could, you know, have a straighter nose, or I could, or anything I come up with is silly ideas. But ultimately, it's about you're there for service. You're there to make an impact. And if you do that, people want to pay you, because that's what they pay for. They don't pay for your persona, as far as I mean, most of the time. So no, I think that's an important, apart from, you know, it being about me, I think it's an important distinction in general. I think it's useful to remember that you're there to serve people and to impact them, to help them see the world differently, and for them to live differently in some way, some small way, even by, you know, consuming your music or feeling connected with you. That changes someone's life, but when they feel you in your music, so you make their life a little bit better. So no, that's a cool observation. Really nice.
Can I say that I just really agree with that, and I really love inspiring people in a way that when I talked about music in whatever way, if it's composing or singing or playing flute or something, I do this kind of all the time on Discord a lot, especially in this time, and I find that people are actually inspired to when they talk when I talk about these things, that people are actually inspired to actually go into to go play an instrument or something, because I've been talking about the things that I love, and that's like my main goal with it, to inspire other people in the end. And yeah, and so going back to what we did with my other question, I didn't really mean to say that I'm really into the business part. It was just that I didn't know how to reach people, and you really helped me to reach the audience through a human way instead of feeling pushy about it.
Beautiful. I'm glad. That was my intention, so I'm glad it's been helpful for one person at least. Good. Cool. Nice. I'm conscious that there may still be a question that you're too shy to ask until I push you to ask someone. So push you to ask me. So if there's anybody out there who would like to ask me a question, they've been thinking about it, they've been holding back from asking it, and now is your chance. If you're waiting for a sign, this is your sign. Ask me the question, or it will draw to a close without you asking. Final call for questions.
Can I, Nick? Sorry.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Let me turn my camera. I've been baking, so everything's a mess. you said about providing value for people, and I really get that and really empathize with that. Where do you draw the line if you feel as if you can't anymore?
What do you mean specifically by that? Give me an idea of a circumstance. Why has you asked that question?
I started some new pupils, and they're two brothers, and one of them is doing really, really well, and the other one, I just feel as if my sort of communication style, there's been a couple of weeks where it feels as if it feels a bit deflated at the end because there's not that immediate progress that there is with the other one. So part of it is probably I'm comparing the two, which I probably shouldn't be doing, but I feel as if really there might be someone that could just click with him a bit better than I could. And then is that my place to sort of step aside and suggest that they look for other people, or do I keep going and trying? Sort of, where does the integrity come from that?
It's a very good question, and I like the use. I like your use of the word integrity because, you know, to me that if we're talking about commercial relationships, you know, whether it's you're talking there at the sort of fulfillment stage of doing what you said you were going to do, right? And you realize that maybe there's a client effectively that you have that you feel like you could serve more deeply, or someone could serve more deeply. So it sounds like you've got a choice of, do I stick with it and I don't get creative about how I have the conversations and maybe rethink and replan, or do I, or potentially sort of deepen my skills in order to be able to say, for example, the first time that I taught someone that had ADHD, it's like I didn't really know what it was, so I looked up what it was and spoke to people about it. That was a learning journey, and then through having that student, I then understood what worked and what didn't work. And after the 10th or 12th student, then I figured out what was going on there. The second choice is legitimately, actually, maybe at some level I don't feel like I'm the best person for you, so you refer someone on. As far as I can tell, that's a choice that you'll have to make for yourself in terms of the specific context of the student. Now, what I would say is that if you are a teacher or a business person who is always going on a kind of personal development journey, who's always looking within and looking to develop your craft and kind of honing the way that you think about yourself and kind of doing that sort of deep work with yourself, then often you'll find that you can find a way. It's just a challenge, right? But there will be times when, they really, I'm not saying you, because I know you're a phenomenal player, but there are sometimes cases where a teacher needs to hand over to a better player, or they need to hand over to someone who's just got more experience with, someone with Asperger's or a particular kind of student. And that to me is just a legitimate decision that you make instinctively. You might require a little bit of reflection or sort of speaking with a colleague or a coach or the parents of the kid, whatever. But as far as I can tell, that's ultimately going to be down to you. And there's nothing that I could really say that would give you a foolproof method, apart from what's your sense, like what insightfully makes sense to you. If you get quiet, like what feels like the right option.
No, you explaining the two paths was very helpful. I think I know which one I want to go down. So
cool. Okay, so we leave it. We don't want to talk about that in more detail. Cool. Okay. Cool. Okay, I think we've probably got time for one more question. You would have the honor of being the last person to ask a question on the call, or we'll draw things to a close. This is your final call. Last question. That's not a bad thing. I might have done a very good job.
I've got something to ask you.
Yeah, go for it.
I noticed earlier you were saying about putting up like some free masterclasses in your like 6-part step thing. You mentioned about engaging with customers, putting up some free classes. So I've had people ask me to like put up some tutorials on like production and stuff, but some of them are actually clients of mine, and it might just be me being a bit, you know, funny or something, but where, again, it's coming down to drawing the line. Like, where does the line come in between giving out free stuff and then them just abusing it to kind of gain their own knowledge and do it by themselves?
When you say they're clients of yours, are you worried that they would get your tutorials and not have to employ you anymore?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Well, the honest answer is they could do that.
Yeah.
They could. In the same way that when I post something that's useful to people in my Facebook group, they may not hire me as a result of it because they feel like they've gone further along. Right. Yeah. So that there may, again, it's like the watering the tree analogy. Like you're thinking about the whole thing rather than just the individual case by case. And I know that if you really want the income from one particular person, you know, if you're thinking about it in that way, it can really seem like actually I could mess this relationship up. I would say that there are strategic decisions that you make. Right, you know, so like I said about the content marketing, focusing on buying decisions. You know, I guess you want to create content that, and it's kind of like this call, right? I'm giving you a framework, and the framework is useful. But and it's a limit of time actually as well. I'm not giving you a coaching experience. I'm not giving you. We're not coming up with a specific action plan of all the steps that you need to take in order to implement all this stuff. I'm just giving you the overall, like, here's the game we're playing. So we're playing rugby, or we're playing American football, or we're playing tennis, right? And now, you know, my hope is that people leave the call knowing the rules of the game. And then if it makes sense for them to come back to me and work with me, that's cool. If it doesn't, also cool. But if I hadn't have created this, then I wouldn't be able to share it with clients that would then sort of potential clients that would then ripen the berry. Say again?
So you're saying like you share a little bit, so then they want more.
I wouldn't say that I share a little bit, because I'm saying exactly the same thing that I say in one-to-one sessions with people about this stuff. I've selected carefully I'm making sure that I'm both serving and being useful, hopefully, and I'm educating on the buying process as well. I'm doing both of those things. So I'm not really losing anything by giving depth of what I do. So it's just a case of you targeting what it is that you share, so that it is valuable. And there is a sweet spot, you know, like finding it a valuable insight to them that changes how they think about it, and then them being, actually, do you know what, that was a really helpful session. Can we actually talk about doing a little bit of work for me, because I think you're the person that would really, you seem to really know, and then that helps them, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of clearing things up a bit.
Because they'll value the relationship and the care and the service and the impact more than you probably realize they will.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much.
So I would say don't hold back from giving them your best stuff. Give them your best stuff, but just don't, you know, spend a little bit of time thinking about which of that best stuff you're going to give them. Right? It's still good quality. It's still impactful. It's designed to serve. It's not designed to sell, but it is designed to help them buy if they want to.
Sure. Okay.
Giving them the first stage of their journey, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Good stuff.
Nick, don't forget the screenshot.
Oh, not for this one.
Oh,
sorry. Thank you. That's another thing maybe I should mention. This is behind closed doors, so this is not being shared publicly. This is something because of lead generation. this is kind of a kind of prospect development piece, and it's a sort of more high value thing. So I know that there's a lot of people that want this. So I'm not going to broadcast who was on it because they want to be anonymous. And I'm also going to, if someone wants the audio, I might say later on, we had a call. If you'd like a copy of the recording, put your hand up, because that's lead generation. So I know who they are, and then I can have a conversation if they want to. So at least I know who they are. They're not secretly lurking. Right. Cool. So we've gone a little bit over, but thanks so much for your time. It's been wonderful to share this evening here in the UK with you, and lots of love, and wishing you a Merry Christmas. See you soon.